When I was a kid, I always wanted to watch movies, so my parents would buy me some movies if I was being good. I loved watching whatever DVDs they got me, but the hard part was navigating through the menus to find the actual movie, being the absent-minded child that I was. And most of the time, I would find myself instead watching a special features bonus or a series of deleted scenes from the movie I was watching. And I thought, hey, why not make a video about it? So today I thought I'd take you back to a margin of a movie you grew up watching that may have escaped you. So let's take a look at the deleted scenes from the original Toy Story. Probably one of the most watched movies for me as a child. If it wasn't for Toy Story 2 or any of the Power Rangers movies, it was definitely this one. So let's check it out. Believe it or not, this film has two alternate openings. The first one is similar to the opening in the final cut where Andy is playing with his toys and sets made out of cardboard boxes and such. But instead of a bank robbery, this one is a Mexican standoff between Andy and Woody. Andy gets a little carried away with the act and accidentally knocks over a vase, and when Andy isn't looking, Woody saves it in the nick of time. It's actually a really interesting way of showing the toys come to life and how the rules work for them as toys, and would serve us well enough to be the opening as it's meant to transition into the logo. Though I understand the writers not showing them come to life until after they've established Andy's relationship with Woody and his other toys. The second alternate opening is actually an episode of the Buzz Lightyear cartoon, which I didn't think existed yet in this universe, considering the movie only showcased him as this new amazing action figure and only that. It wasn't even until after Toy Story 2 that Buzz Lightyear had his own movie, so that's kind of misleading. It's actually a really cool action sequence on paper. Well, literally, but it's also very reminiscent in a future tense for the opening to Toy Story 2 with Rex playing the Buzz Lightyear video game. Buzz is up against what I can assume is a precursor for Emperor Zurg, but not as cool. He seems a little too skinny and bashful to be like him. Not to mention his voice is a little too slimy.
I've won! I've won! In less than a minute, that planet of orphans will be destroyed.
Unlike Zurg's, which was deep and menacing like Darth Vader, which he's directly based off of. Not that I am against a villain like this, but the problem with this guy is that he's nowhere near a match for Buzz Lightyear, which Emperor Zurg is, and more so. So he's not really seen as an imposing threat. Not to mention, this fight sequence is pretty violent for Toy Story. So much dismemberment and explosions. Two things I would never have thought to see in a Toy Story movie. Well, until the third, but you know, two different generations. Also, I don't see this scene working because we see before Buzz comes into the picture that Woody prides himself in being Andy's favorite toy, and nothing could come between them. So having an opening like this could give off the wrong impression for the viewers and the storytelling aspect. Plus, they totally half-assed Buzz by giving his show a lame subtext.
Don't miss the next exciting episode of Buzz Lightyear, Defender of the Universe.
You could put that bland subtext under He-Man and kids would buy it, but it doesn't even come close to Star Command. Come on, guys. The next one isn't really a deleted scene, but more so a section removed from an already existing scene. The scene where we're first introduced to Buzz when he thinks he's crash-landed on a strange planet. Anyone who's seen this movie is familiar with this scene, but did anyone think they would hear this in the final cut?
My ship! Damn. This'll take weeks to repair.
Yes, you heard that right. Buzz Lightyear just said a curse word. I assume the writers thought this movie would be at least PG considering this and the other material you're going to see in a moment, but there's too much G-rated material to evenly balance out the two. Not to mention, this was a time when the G and PG rating meant something to Pixar films, or just films in general. 10 years prior to this movie, there were a lot of things you could get away with in a PG rating.
Holy shit!
A lot of people thought Incredibles could have been PG-13, remember that? But I digress. Also, we know Bo Peep is Woody's girlfriend, but she comes on to Buzz pretty strong here.
Excuse me, handsome. Ooh, I'll bet he glows in the dark.
You whore!
This next one is a little different with its placing in the film. Two deleted scenes that are neck and neck with each other but don't take place in any other scene from the movie. One of them is where Woody has a nightmare and is immediately followed up by Woody trying to trick Buzz into getting played with by Andy's sister Molly. There's no scene where Woody and Buzz share the bed with Andy, as weird as that sounds, but I'm assuming this scene became the ending of the montage where Buzz is being appreciated by the other toys and Woody gets put in the toy box as opposed to sleeping with Andy. Again, as weird as that sounds.
Hell yeah!
The nightmare sequence involves Woody being tossed into the trash because he can't do all the cool things that Buzz can. This scene alone is pretty dark, with the cold stares on the toys' faces and the creepy music. Oh, and just when you think it couldn't get more disturbing, Yep. Cockroaches. That's what we're doing. We're doing cockroaches. And Toy Story fans should be no stranger to a scene like this because it's eerily similar to the nightmare sequence from Toy Story 2, as this deleted scene became the basis for that scene. But, yeah, cockroaches. Pretty scary. I don't know if it's as scary as the limbs of other toys dragging you down, but I don't like either of them. Okay, take a deep breath. No more cockroaches. Next scene. Immediately following up that scene, Woody wakes up Buzz in the middle of the night to have him fall under a trap. And this includes Buzz flipping out over nighttime for some reason.
No, Buzz. There's a problem.
A problem?
Yes.
The sun!
No, not...
The sun has been kidnapped. Children can't play. You'll never get up in the morning. No more breakfast.
Oh, Buzz,
the
Buzz.
sun is gone.
Buzz, the sun being gone is not the problem. Buzz, it's nighttime.
I see.
And even though that doesn't really make sense, it's still a funny scene.
Look, the problem is this.
You know, Woody, I think I've been accepted into your culture.
Great.
Your chief, Andy, inscribed his name on me.
What?
Juvenile, but endearing.
And that's the problem!
My foot.
No, Buzz.
So as mentioned before, Woody tries to trick Buzz into getting snatched into Molly's crib, as weird as that sounds, and believe it or not, Woody tries to convince him that he's actually a space ranger in disguise. And damn, Woody seems pretty diabolical with how conniving he is, just listening to how convincing his argument is.
Andy is in grave danger. That's why I'm so glad that you are here, really. Truly, Buzz, if you were here... how can I... Oh, Buzz. Oh, Buzz, my friend.
Get a hold of yourself, cowboy.
Oh, Buzz, I'm not a cowboy. I'm just dressed like one. You see, it's my cover.
That's almost scary how much villain material he can be, but that is nothing compared to what you're about to see. So everybody remembers that scene where Woody jokes around with Buzz and eventually gets him thrown out a window by accident, right? Well, that is nothing compared to how nasty and mean-spirited the original take was. This was the only deleted scene I didn't watch when I was a kid because I saw all of these on the 10th anniversary DVD back in 2005. And this one I just recently discovered on the Blu-ray release because that's the only place you can find it, aside from the internet of course. Because the original was so dark that you could say it's a spiritual successor to Watership Down. Let's get this scene over with. First off, Woody doesn't actually knock Buzz out the window by accident, but he throws him out without a second thought and brushes it off like it was nothing. Everyone else gets involved and starts harassing Woody.
Men, search and rescue. I want a medevac team on the double.
At ease,
Hustle up.
Sergeant.
Move it.
Hey, Spuds for brains. What do you think you're doing? Off the bed. Hey, off the bed!
You gonna make us, Woody?
And Woody's defense is to order Slinky to push them off like he's some sort of slave or something.
Are you deaf? I said take care of them!
I'm sorry, Woody, but I have to agree with them. I don't think what you did was right.
And not only does he do that, but when Slinky doesn't listen, Woody belittles him in front of everyone.
You don't think I was right? Who said your job was to think, Spring Wiener?
Well, I just thought that you...
use this vast reserve of brain power to consider this for a moment. If it wasn't for me, Andy wouldn't pay any attention to you at all. In fact, my sketchy friend, you would have been hauled away to Goodwill a long time ago, so shut your mouth and get them off the bed.
Dude, Ramsey Bolton is taking a backseat to this guy. I'm just expecting in the next scene he'll cut off his tail. And what is the best course of action?
1, 2... Stop! Don't throw him off the bed!
Yeah.
Throw him out the window like he did to Buzz!
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
John Lasseter himself was ashamed to be showing this on the Blu-ray, and it certainly shows why. Anyway, next scene. The next scene comes up at a time where we're introduced to Sid, showcasing the nasty things he does to toys. But the original version, however, pushes it to a bit of an extreme, with both the backstory of Sid and how much Tom Hanks can yell loud enough to break his voice, to the Hanksiest extent.
It's Sid.
What's a Sid?
That is a Sid!
In this scene, we're introduced to an unnamed rattle who tells the story of another rattle named Shakes who belonged to Sid and how he used to torture him. Which some people wouldn't think is too big considering he's being shown blowing up a comrade Carl, but just listen to how the rattle tells the story.
I heard the screams.
You mean like happy screams, right?
Some say pulled Shakes apart. like the wings off a fly. There's others that think he melted him in acid, a bit at a time. Pulled his eyes out first to let him watch. In Sid's room, there's things much worse than death.
Scenes like this make me glad they didn't go with the darker route, otherwise this film would have scarred me as a child. In the film that you've seen before, Sid is just made out to be like a bad kid or a ruffian, mind you, but this is making him out to be like a psychotic killer, which the final cut does not even touch upon too much. But if it did, this would be a whole other story, let me tell you. And you know what, I think I'll cover one more scene. The last one here is an alternate version of the final scene where the toys get even with Sid. Remember how creepy it was when Woody started talking to Sid without moving his mouth, and then all of a sudden his dismembered toys started popping out from everywhere? Well, if you thought that was the creepiest version, then your instincts are correct, because the common trend with these deleted scenes is them being darker than the finished product. But this scene from the actual film was just perfectly executed, while this alternate one is just really, really lame.
Ignition. Huh?
Geppetto, look! I'm a real boy!
Not even Tom Hanks can make that sound good. No, not even Jim Hanks can make that sound good. Not to mention, the tone of the scene is completely off, or at least very uneven, much like most of the other scenes here. The final cut of this scene was pretty unsettling and only got creepier until Sid was out of the picture. In this version though, Woody and Buzz are just kind of insulting him. It's just kind of annoying, actually.
And stupid,
Selfish,
nasty,
repulsive little butt face.
that we made an exception just for you.
And then immediately being followed up by the dismembered toys popping up. This scene started out really cheesy and then went for the scare with almost no transition. But then it's followed up by this creepy moment.
I'm kind of new at this toy thing, but something tells me we aren't supposed to do that.
Oh, what harm could it have done, Buzz? Just screwed him up for the rest of his life, that's all.
No! Ah! Ah! No! I'm sorry! I'm sorry! Oh no! I'll never hurt you again! No!
And now back to the scary. I have no idea what they're doing to Sid up there, but let's be thankful we live to never know. So, those were a handful of deleted scenes from the original Toy Story, or at least the ones I grew up watching. And can't you see why they were taken out? It's like the writers of the film had no idea what tone they wanted to use for this movie. Sometimes it's kid-friendly, other times it tries to be too dark. It's like a teeter-totter for the animation rating. One side is the G rating and the other is the PG rating. And it's never evenly leveled, it's always heavier one or heavier the other, with no coherency. But it just makes me happy they got it right in the end, because for the first computer animated film ever, it sure delivered in the final product. But if you want to see how this film could have been, pick up a copy of Toy Story on Blu-ray and see for yourself. Just make sure you hold on to your childhood close before you do, because otherwise it'll be tainted for sure.